Hello and welcome. I'm Lenny Tvedten, and each month we're going to visit with some Martin County veterans in a series called Their Sacrifices, Our Freedom. Today I'll be visiting with D Landsteiner, Ben Olson, and Brian Schofield. Thank you for your service, and thank you for reading my book. I appreciate that very much. To begin with, could I ask each of you to just tell a little bit about yourself, what you're doing now, and we'll start with Doug.
Yeah. So I was born in Fairmont and went to high school here, graduated in 1972. I'm currently the Martin County Veteran Service Officer. Married, I have 2 children, and still working.
Okay, good. Ben.
Ben Olson. I'm from Fairmont, Minnesota, born and raised. I graduated in 2012. I am single and am currently working for Northern Border Pipeline in Trimont, Minnesota.
Okay, good. Thank you. Brian.
I'm Brian Schofield. I was born and raised in Martin County here, born in the old Fairmont Hospital and raised on the family farm between Truman and Winnebago. Attended the Truman Public School from K through 12 and graduated in 1974. Currently, I retired for 2 years and currently drugged myself out of retirement and now working as a courier for a local dental office.
Oh, well, good. Well, thank you. All right. Now I'd like to ask you a little bit about your time in the military, the branch of the military you served in, where you served, when you served, what your duties were. And let's go ahead and start with Brian this time.
Well, I joined the Minnesota Air National Guard in 1991 after the promise from Saddam Hussein that we're going to have the mother of all wars. Well, unfortunately, by the time I got out of basic training and my technical training, the war had ended. And I thought, well, it's just going to be a one-time, one-enlistment airman. But the more I got involved in it, the more we were involved in peacekeeping missions, peace-mandating missions, and state backup, state active duty. I decided to make it a career, and that's why I was. I stayed in from 1991 through 2016. As you may notice, I'm probably a little bit older than most. I'll be honest with you, a non-traditional person going in the military. I joined at the age of 33, and most people do it at the age of 18 or younger.
So that you hadn't served before then? That was your first time?
Nope, that's exactly.
And this was Air Force, did you say?
The Air National Guard, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, served that 25 years of some change. Did Northern Watch, Southern Watch, counter drug missions down in Curacao in the Caribbean Basin. 4 days after 9/11 occurred, we headed out to Central Asia to prosecute the war against the Taliban and Al Qaeda, and it was just kind of a whirlwind time from 2001 until I retired in 2016.
Okay, thank you. Ben.
I joined the Navy in 2013. I went through the nuclear pipeline, so I was kind of spread out in South Carolina for a little while and upstate New York after completing boot camp in Great Lakes, to which I was very fortunate to end up stationed in San Diego for 4 years. While I was out there, we did 2 deployments and the Rim of the Pacific oceanic exercises. My job, I was a nuclear machinist mate, which is a pretty fancy way of saying a mechanic for an aircraft carrier, just so they could keep it going. Yeah.
Okay, good. How long were you in, did you say?
6 years, from 2013 through 2019, yes.
Okay. Doug, how about you?
Well, I joined the Navy right after high school and graduated, of course, in 72. So I went in the Navy. I went to basic training in San Diego. I went to Memphis for fleet prep school. I went into an air squadron, a VP-19 out in Moffett Field, California. After that, I volunteered for submarine duty. I had to extend a year to make it a total of 4 years. I went to San Diego for some quick studies on sonar equipment. I went out to the USS Cavallo on the East Coast and spent the remaining 2 of the 4 years on a U.S. nuclear-powered submarine. Of course, I was a sonarman, so I wasn't back with the nukes. Mm-hmm. And had a lot of adventures.
Very lucky.
Did you have some kind of interesting experiences on that?
I did. There was a couple of, actually there was about 3 incidents that could have resulted in a severe impact on the crew on the ship, possibly loss of crew and ship, and because of the sub-safe program that the Navy instituted after the Thresher and the Scorpion went down, all of the submariners were schooled and trained in submarine systems, and we had a lot of very knowledgeable, heroic crewmen, and they did what they needed to do at the locations of the incident and prevented any kind of a terrible incident from happening thanks to that training.
How many crew members were there on a submarine like that?
On a fast attack, anywhere between 105 and 115, I guess, depending on if we had extra riders. And then the junior guys in the ship got to bunk in the torpedo room, and the senior guys, the riders that were much senior to us, would get our racks and our
did you get the torpedo room? Or
yeah, on a couple of different. I went down to the torpedo room, yes, because I was fairly junior. After the first tour of duty in '76, I got out. I had a broken service period, and then I went back in the Navy as a cryptologic technician, maintenance. So I worked for the CT community for the remaining 16 years that I was in the Navy. So,
okay, a cryptologic technician.
CTM. CT is a special category in the Navy, Naval Security Group. And there's about 6 different specialty ratings within the CT community. I was one of those 6, maintenance. So my job was to basically work on the electronic systems that I got training on and fix it for the smart people who broke it.
Okay. Speaking of the submarine, was there any, could anyone serve in submarine duty, or were there, I guess what I'm thinking of, some may be claustrophobic and are unable to tolerate that kind of a situation, or isn't that really an issue with the...
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it is an issue. Any of the submarine crews are all volunteer.
Volunteer,
of
okay.
course. And
okay.
So, and they're screened, so if there's any issues, they're filtered out or weeded out.
They don't walk in their sleep or anything.
I'm not exactly sure what all the criteria is. It's not something I memorized. I was just glad that I was able to volunteer and serve successfully for nearly the last 2 years of my first 4-year enlistment.
Sure.
So,
well, you just think back on your time in the service. What are some events that took place that kind of stand out in your mind that you can recall?
You know, the morning of 9/11. That was very, very outstanding in my memory, my military career, and I think the memory of everybody who was alive in this country at that time. During that period of time, my wife and I owned the local dry cleaners here, and my daughter happened to call the office of the business there and said, "Dad, turn your TV on. There's a plane that hit the World Trade Center, and they don't think it's an accident." And I turned the TV on at that time, and just in time to see the second plane hit, and I thought, well, now this is an accident. This is intentional. My son, who was a propulsion specialist at the Air National Guard Base 133rd in Minneapolis at that time, was up there. I gave him a quick call on the cell phone. And I said, "What's going on, Will?" And he says, "We're going in Delta, Dad." And so I kissed my wife goodbye. I said, "I don't know when I'll be back." Went home, grabbed my war bag, headed up there. And it was really a surreal time. Wasn't a lot of traffic on the highways going up. Go up to the main gate of the 133rd Airlift Wing, and I thought I was back in the Middle East. We had Jersey barriers set up, serpentine. We had a 5-ton truck that was sandbagged up with a M249 machine gun in it. Everyone was wearing their full battle rattle. It was incredible. There wasn't any air traffic leaving the airport, departure or incoming. It kind of right there, put everything together that I've been training for and doing for the 10 years prior to that. It was just different. A sad event, obviously, but I think it showed what our country's military's worth is. We all stepped up to the plate. A lot of us left our homes and our businesses behind, and we did what needed to be done.
Right. Okay. Ben, how about you?
I served in a little different time than Brian. That's not really memories that I have, but I remember like we had some like memorable things, or more the people were a big thing, you know, getting to
Right.
I mean they're friends that I'm going to have for the rest of my life, and I'm sure that Doug and Brian and Lenny can all say to the same. And then the memories just with those people, it's not so much like we got to do the Rim of the Pacific exercise. I mean, that was a neat thing because you've got 20 some countries that are out doing different exercises out in the coast, off the coast of California, out by Hawaii. We got to go and be in port in Hawaii for 3 weeks, and they did a bunch of games and things that they're not very common, and you get to see just a lot of camaraderie between, I mean, my job, we didn't see the sun that often, but when we got a chance to go out during those events and see the formation of the ships working together and how all that stuff kind of meshes together, seeing the planes fly together, and it's just you see how powerful everything really is. I mean,
It's kind of like you had to be there.
yeah, right. It's
You know.
it's hard to put it in. I mean, pictures don't do it justice
Right.
to be there. I mean, you just like it's ships as far as this you can see, planes
Sure.
flying overhead. I mean, it's just like
It's choreographed, isn't it?
yeah.
Mike?
I mean, it's just
incredible.
beautiful, you know,
Yep.
and it's
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that, you know, you can talk about it, explain it as best as possible, but
yeah.
you have to be
Until you
there.
see it. Yeah.
But it's just that's and it. I mean, it was all for fun. I mean, but it was just good practice. You know, it's something that they do I believe it's every 2 years, but just to be a part of it, you know, because
Sure.
we only send one aircraft carrier, and I was fortunate to be on the Carl Vinson when they did it. So that's something. And then just like I said, the people, you know, they're friends I'm gonna have. If I ever get married, they'll be in my wedding. I've been in weddings for them. It's just people that.
Yeah, that's the thing about being in the service. The people you meet, I mean, they're friends for life.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Yep.
Doug, anything that really sticks
Memories?
up? Yeah.
I have a lot of good memories. I was in a long time. Kind of grouped my experience into like 3 categories because I had a 2-year experience with a VP squadron as a ground pounder. I wasn't part of the air crew, and then I had after that 2 years experience on the submarine on the USS Kavala. That was SSN 684, and so that's another group, and I had a lot of good experience with both of those groups. And in the last 16 years, is kind of divided up into different duty stations. So a lot to draw on. I've got mostly all good memories of my service, and.
Yeah.
And all of the people I worked with, I respected them all. I didn't always agree with all of them, but I respected them. I had a lot of valuable lessons. I learned timeliness, and I learned discipline, and I did a lot of growing up while I was in the service. So yeah, there's a lot of good experiences that you can think back on and draw on. It would take forever and a day to go through them.
You kind of noticed, Doug, that everyone showed up 15 minutes earlier. You tell them, if you're 15 minutes earlier, you're never late.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
At least you guys were early anyway.
Yeah.
Has your service in the military influenced your life beyond the military? Could you say it's had an influence in any way on you now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How so?
As evident, we were all 15 minutes early, and that's probably not something we did before.
Good work discipline,
Yeah.
respect for others, respect for authority.
Right.
It's something you carry on through the rest of your life.
Doug's right. We draw from those experiences. I used to always say you learn just as much from a bad supervisor as you do from a good one, and you put that all together, and that is what forms your life. That's how you do things in the civilian world. You know.
Definitely, learning from the people, it was huge. I mean, we're all from Martin County here, and I mean, you don't see a lot in the Martin County, you know, when you get out and you meet people from California and Texas and New York and Western Kentucky, and like
Sure.
you learn different ways of life, and you see just how people are different, you know. And I mean, it's once you leave Martin County and you go and meet people that are not from here, you know, you pick up on traits from people that grew up a little bit differently than you do. And like everyone has said, I mean, you'll have good leaders, you'll have bad leaders. You learn the good from the good, and you learn what not to do from the bad. And all of that stuff has definitely, I mean, developed all of us into the people that we are today.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Another thing that I've noticed when I was about the time I left home after graduating, I thought I was pretty smart.
Did we all?
I thought I had the answers to all the questions, and
Yeah.
I was pretty sure that my mom and dad weren't all of that smart that they thought they were. But I learned later how brilliant my parents actually were. I mean, as I grew older and learned some lessons on my own outside of the family protected shell in the real world and then under the military umbrella, I learned that I wasn't so smart and they were quite brilliant. So the older I got, the smarter they got.
Sure.
So the military was part of that lesson.
Yeah.
Did either one of you on that first night in basic training wondering what the heck did I do?
At about 2 o'clock in the morning when you're getting your head buzzed.
The epiphany hits is like, what am I doing?
I was kind of in a state of worry most of basic training, I think, and wanted to make sure I did everything I was told. I mean, one of the things you're supposed to learn in basic is how to take orders and how to follow instructions. I did my best to do that, and I still seem to get it wrong.
Well, it's the kind of thing, I think, for me that originally or initially I maybe was not looking forward to, but once I did it and once it was over and done, it's probably, from my perspective, 4 of the best years of my life.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so. Well, thank you very much for joining us today and telling us about your time in the service, gentlemen. I appreciate that. I'd also like to thank our viewers and our sponsors, the family of Mike Gary, Sweet Financial Partners, Erpelding Voigt and Company CPAs, and Lisi Prentice, American Legion Post 36 in Fairmont. Thank you for your service, and we'll see you next time.